Hello everyone and welcome. In the spirit of this Halloween season, I'm going to be reviewing a lot more horror thriller films for this month of October. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the film The Collector. It was released in 2009 and written by Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan. The movie was directed by Mr. Dunstan himself. Now these two screenwriters have a history of making films together. For instance, they made a film called Feast, which has spun many sequels and have had a long career in the horror thriller film genre. They even have a hand in the successful horror thriller film franchise Saw. They've even written a few of the films. In the film, The Collector, Brandon Cox was in charge of cinematography, which I may add did a very good job. The film was edited by Alex Luna, James Mastracco, and Howard Smith, which I also want to add that they did a really good job. Now I gotta say, when it comes to cinematography and editing, especially in horror films, that's what you need to focus on in order to really forge fear in the audience. More on that later. Now the film The Collector was produced by companies Fortress Features and Imaginarium Entertainment Group, and it was distributed by LD Entertainment. It had a budget of $3 million and made around $10.2 million at the box office, so somewhat financially successful for a small film on this scale. Now I know a lot of you are thinking $3 million, a small film. $3 million is a lot of money. I mean, it is a lot of money, but in terms of making films, that's generally between the small to mid-scale size film. So the film was successful financially, but what about critically? Well, the film actually received some good reviews. A little bit mixed, not the best reviews, but it actually received a lot of good reviews. And I must admit that films in this genre generally don't display the widest range of human emotion or have really thoughtful, thorough writing. And so you're going to see that in horror films. They generally tend to fall short in that area. Which is fine, because the main point of these types of films is to scare. So it's easy to understand and to overlook that these certain aspects of filmmaking or the storytelling process gets either overlooked or neglected. That being said, the film did well enough financially and critically to warrant a sequel. In fact, a horror-based production company and review site, Bloody Disgusting, reviewed the film as quite well and even added that it has the potential to be a horror icon. Which I totally agree with. I think it's a really good film. I think The Collector, the antagonist of the film more specifically, has the potential to be just as iconic as Freddy or Jason. It's fresh and it's unique in my opinion. And when I first saw the film many years ago, I was scared, and I was also impressed and saw the potential of this actually becoming iconic. So you can say I'm glad that they made a sequel. I might be reviewing that sometime later this month. That being said, I do have a personal bias against horror films. They're my least favorite genre. That's not that they have anything wrong with them in particular. You know, you can enjoy your own, type of film. It's all what you choose to enjoy. I just happen to enjoy them the least, mainly because of the writing. It's not as thorough or thoughtful as mentioned earlier. And so the main purpose of the film is just to scare. And that's totally fine, right? That's its purpose. You don't want a drama to focus too much on the comedy aspects, even if it is a dramedy, like a mixture of the two. You want there to still be drama to move the plot forward. You don't want to go into a horror film, not be scared at all. But you will see that there are elements of the storytelling process totally overlooked or neglected. So we won't go too much into that. Let's just enjoy the horror film as it is intended to be a horror film. We'll be moving on to the cast and then a quick plot summary. The film stars Josh Stewart as Arkin, Madeline Zima as Jill Chase, Andrea Roth as Victoria Chase, Carly Scott Collins as Hannah Chase, Michael Riley Burke as Michael Chase, and finally Juan Fernandez as the Collector. Alright, so a quick summary of the plot. We follow a handyman and a safecracker, Arkin, who's looking to case the house he's working on just so that he can rob it and use that money to save his family who are in danger of loan sharks. Once the family is out on vacation, Arkin returns late that night in order to steal the goods, but is interrupted by somebody entering the house. He, as well as the audience, have no idea who it is. It's only as the film progresses that we find out the Collector has paid them a visit. Now the film is a bit old at this point. This will be a spoiler review. I find it a little bit hard to make any informative or entertaining videos without giving any spoilers away. If I were to make just a very plain review of the film in which I don't talk about anything or spoil it in any way, these videos would be 2 minutes long, maybe even less. So I'll go ahead and give you guys a quick review for those of you who don't want anything spoiled. I'm just going to be giving you like a really quick review. You can go ahead and log off afterwards and watch the film if you're really interested. I won't be spoiling too much in this video, but there are things in here that I will be talking about that you might not want to hear. So I'll just, give you a quick review. Obviously, you can imagine that I do like the film. I find it to be quite scary. It's a nice thriller. It's really fun to watch for the Halloween season. You can watch it. You'll be at the edge of your seat. Thankfully, due to good acting, really good pacing, editing, and cinematography. Those are the main reasons why the film works. It's pretty good, and it's pretty entertaining to watch. So that's it. That's my brief review of the film. It's going to be spoilers ahead, so you've been warned. So who is the Collector? Well, the Collector is a skilled engineer and locksmith of some kind who sets up traps in homes of families who've went away for a vacation or some reason or another. And he does this to maim or kill them. Now, those who survive, he chooses to be part of his collection of some kind, and the rest he kills. Part of his MO is to blow up the building. I guess that's either to hide the evidence or just because he thinks it's cool. Why he collects them is not really known until a little bit later in the sequel, The Collection, a film, like I said earlier, I might review a little bit later on this month. So that's about it for all the spoilers. I'm just going to go ahead and talk about what makes the film work. Why is it so good, so entertaining, and scary as a horror thriller film? First off, let's go ahead and cover the writing. I know I mentioned it earlier, the writing is just decent in most horror films. They won't really cover every single thing. It's not going to be really well thought out and thorough and incredible. They're going to focus more on the horror aspects, the thriller aspects, and that's totally fine. That's not a bad thing. We're talking about a horror film here. So it's just decent. It's a nice writing, good progression, and good pace. The temperature of the film definitely heats up as it progresses, and it increases in quality throughout. But for me personally, the success of the film lies mainly in the pacing, the acting, the editing, and cinematography. The acting is pretty good, pretty decent from Josh Stewart, the leading man, as well as the, menacing and scary mannerisms of Juan Fernandez, who plays the Collector. But mainly the pacing, editing, and cinematography take the cake for what makes this film so good, so scary, and such a thrill ride that it is. The pacing really picks up when you're wondering who is in the house, and you get into this little cat and mouse chase game between Arkin and the Collector, which is mainly low-key until around the middle of the film when the Collector finds out that there's someone else in the home sabotaging his plans. So now there's this full-on chase between the two. He's trying to escape, but of course the Collector's rigged the house to be very difficult to escape and nothing but a death trap. This is where the suspense increases intensely, not so much near the end where there's an incredible twist that I find very entertaining. I promise I won't spoil that, but this is the part of the film where they're chasing each other and when they know they're in the house, when the suspense at its near its highest. I also want to add how much I appreciate the fact that we're not following Arkin as he's just trying to escape. A lot of horror thriller or slasher films, that's just the plot. They're just trying to escape this killer. But that's not the case with this film. There's a hero element added. Once Arkin finds out the family is still in the house, being tortured, and that there's a little girl, they have a little girl, the Chase family, that he's trying to find. She's hidden somewhere in the house. She's trying to avoid the Collector. And so he's trying to get all of them out, not just one of them or whatever. He's trying his best to get all of them out. And so that adds, like I mentioned earlier, a really cool hero aspect to his character. It makes him a little bit more well-rounded. So now we have them actively chasing each other and trying to escape. And this is where the editing and cinematography come into play to make the film a little bit more scary. The editing in the sense that all the traps the Collector places are very mechanical and methodical in placement. They're all primed and ready for killing, and so the camera really focuses on that, and the editing kind of focuses on making the audience know how well placed the traps are through various zoom in and zoom out shots and editing. I also really like the overhead shots of the layout of the film. It kind of shows how close they are, but yet how far they are in relation to each other when trying to escape this house. For instance, you'll have an overhead shot of them literally in the next room from one another. They don't know they're there because they're trying to be really quiet, the Collector being quiet in order to surprise whoever's in there, and Arkin being really quiet to avoid the Collector. I like that a lot, and that does add a little level of suspense that I did enjoy. Again, going back to the cinematography, it's pretty good. It's really good with face focus. You really see Arkin doing his best to avoid running into these traps, and you see all the fear and focus he's being placed in trying to escape this without being maimed or letting the Collector know he's in. I also really enjoy the breakup of suspense that occurs near the end of the film where the Collector finally apprehends Arkin. Not at the very end of the film, but this is near the end of the film, and it kind of shows slow panning throughout the house. After all, there are probably a handful, maybe even a dozen traps set throughout the house, and the camera pans through almost all of them, and it shows the carnage of the Chase family, how some of them have died, how they've been maimed, how they've been captured, and all of this is being done with a little bit of slow rock being played in the background. Now, all of that slow panning and slow rock is interrupted pretty violently by editing. They pull some clips from a storm cloud forming above, and it kind of funnels into a lightning strike that hits the ground right near the house and really interrupts that suspension in a really cool and violent way. The ending, like I mentioned earlier, I really don't want to spoil for you guys. I think it's really cool. It's almost like a twist, practically, and it's something that kind of left you totally wanting and deserving of a sequel, so I'm really glad they did make one. I hear they're in talks to make a third one, kind of like a prequel type thing. I'm definitely interested in seeing that. I would definitely go to the theater and pay money for that, especially a nice Halloween weekend. That sounds like so much fun. Something I am going to touch on briefly that I failed to mention a little bit early on is the soundtrack, just because it was kind of decent. It wasn't anything fantastic. You're not going to have like world-class score individuals like make the soundtrack. It was good though, nothing wrong. That's going to be it for this review. It was a totally good film. I definitely recommend you guys watch it for a good scare, a good thriller film. It has a little bit of gore in it as well. As I may have mentioned earlier, the best parts of the film lay in the editing, pacing, and cinematography. Before the video ends, for any of you who have actually seen the movie, go ahead and let me know in the comments if you liked it, if you think the Collector is an iconic character, and if you'd be interested in seeing a third one, whether it be another prequel or a sequel or whatever. Again, that's going to be it for this video. Go ahead and like the video if you did. Subscribe for more reviews, and go ahead and comment if you'd like me to see or review any other pieces of media. And as always, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again, and take care.